Cool. So that's that. You can always get the stuff by the paper by typing exclamation point paper. Yeah, so this is Restoring the Garden of Eden, a recurring view of the ethics of environmental entrepreneurship by Nuria Toledano, forthcoming in Business Ethics, the Environment and Responsibility. But yeah. Okay, so here we go. Yeah, like I said, I don't know Ricoeur at all, so. Paul Ricoeur. Climate change, deforestation, species loss, and environmental degradation are pressing problems that reflect, in part, the imbalance between human beings and nature. Alright, so we already got like an imbalance theory. And splitting us from nature. Human beings are not part of nature, all of a sudden we're something else. Academics, practitioners, policymakers, and activists denounce the environmental abuses committed by the capitalist system and appeal. Alright, so I guess chat's gonna be happy. We're gonna be like the abuses of capitalism, and the appeal to the responsibility of entrepreneurial agents to address the urgent environmental challenges. In this context, environmental entrepreneurship has been identified as a kind of entrepreneurship appropriate for producing the right solutions. What the heck is a right solution? The central idea of environmental entrepreneurship is that entrepreneurial activities need not undermine the natural environment but can contribute to restoring nature and ecosystems. Environmental entrepreneurs are seen as being endowed with the ability and ambition needed to achieve these aims and to transform the world into a better place. Already, this is making me very nervous. Like, I like this sort of like entrepreneurs are seen as being endowed with the ability. So this is a powers argument. You're endowed with the power to do something. Oh my God. Okay. This perception also ascribes environmental entrepreneurs with a stereotypical identity that is already imbued with exceptional moral character. They are considered as ideal actors who work for the common good and therefore are often ethically endorsed and improved. Okay, so there's already, this person is setting this up. Like, yeah, people are like, oh, they're saving the earth. The what's funny is, of course, Elon Musk has been in the news recently. Constantly, and it's annoying, but like he was seen as this sort of like, oh, he's helping the earth by having Tesla, the green company, and it's like, and he was like morally, ethically endorsed for this. And of course, he's got his problems, but what really gets me is a lot of shenanigans. I don't know if people remember what was it called? It was the second James Bond with Daniel Craig, I think it was, where he was going up against a green energy, CEO, and it was basically a cover, is what it was. The CEO was using this like goodwill that he had by being a green energy company to basically be a scumbag. I mean, he was working for Spectre in the James Bond universe, that is, which is the evil organization. Okay. However, identifying environmental entrepreneurs as ethical individuals raises at least two important problems. On the one hand, there is the issue of identifying green activities, environmental ideals, and the intentions with actual ethical behavior. On the other hand, there is the problem of the content of ethical behavior, as this, although assumed, is not explicitly explained. These two problems are not unconnected, and they are often used in a complementary way to characterize environmental entrepreneurship as an ethical variant of entrepreneurship. The purpose of this article is to examine these problems and propose a solution. Specifically, we address the question of how we can know when and if environmental entrepreneurship is ethical by turning to Paul Ricoeur for guidance. Okay, yeah. So how do we know? Like, if you're going to say, like, oh, Elon Musk is a hero for having an electric car company, well, exactly what is that moral accolade? Like, why should we ascribe someone like that moral accolades? The French philosopher Paul Ricoeur is considered, and as Valpo said, was one of Emmanuel Macron's teachers, who is the current president of France. Is it president? I forget. Prime Minister, president of France. Yeah, so the French philosopher Paul Ricoeur is considered to be one of the most influential thinkers of the 20th century. Ricoeur builds a great part of his ethical arguments by using the narrative resources of the Judeo-Christian tradition, such as the symbol of divine creation or God's command to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. His works are well known among business ethical researchers, as well as in the field of entrepreneurship. Well, this is interesting. I did not know this is where Paul Ricoeur was getting a lot of play. So, like, if this is like, because I know that Macron was, arguing for business and stuff in France, and Paul Ricoeur, I guess, is known for that. Maybe that's some of where Macron got his, cachet from, or like his, why people believed that he would be good for business there. I'm sorry, I think I might have dropped a few frames, but hold on 1 second. Yeah, it looks like it's back. Okay. In particular, for the problems addressed in this paper, we find two aspects of Ricoeur's approach to ethics to be appropriate. The first is Ricoeur's focus on actions and relationships. We believe that this focus is important because it means a transposition of the attention from abstract ethical levels, for example, intentions and states of goodness, to exchanges, for example, doing good and right to someone or something else. Which is what characterizes entrepreneurship itself. Doing good and right to someone or something else is what entrepreneurship is. Have you been to the United States of America, my friend? Who are you? Toledano? I apologize for how I say your name because I don't know anything other than bad English. Not in the United States doesn't that might be what entrepreneurs think of themselves, but it's definitely not that they're doing good and right to someone or something else. I don't know if that's actually how things are. Okay. Moreover, such a focus on relationships allows us to surpass the mainstream ethical theories focused on one specific criterion, like, for example, intentions or consequences, to adopt a complementary view that embraces several criteria at the same time: good purposes, right actions, and appropriate decisions in specific contexts. The second is Ricoeur's logic of hyperbolic generosity. We believe that such a logic, grounded on an anthropology of the self as an interpersonal being and responsible agent who can experience life with gratitude, offers a practical guide to identifying ethics of action in the context of environmental entrepreneurship. Taken together, these Ricoeurian ideas contribute to developing our comprehension of ethics in environmental entrepreneurship by providing a consistent ethical framework that can serve as a guide for discerning ethics in this area. Okay, so I guess the theory here is that if you're going to be an entrepreneur, it's like you're trying to to be boundlessly generous to other people and objects, and to get to build on a theory of generosity of doing good things. I don't understand how that meshes with capitalism, because capitalism generates more money. Now, if you were getting paid to do more, if money and doing good deeds somehow aligned, the more good you were doing was the more money you were bringing in, sure, but that's not capitalism. It's just not. Okay. In the remainder of the paper, we first review what is known and understood about environmental entrepreneurship before examining its ethical endorsement. Then we introduce Ricoeur's insights and arguments, which we later apply to the environmental entrepreneurship field. In the concluding sections, we highlight contributions and avenues for further research. Okay, so basically, I think this is just kind of idealistic, but that's fine. We can have an idealistic paper about how ethical entrepreneurship in terms of the environment might be. So that's what it looks like. And let me know if that... I'm a little cynical. I'm not. That's not true. I'm a lot cynical. I happen to be a bit cynical about this sort of stuff, but I'm a lot cynical, and this is, in my general opinion, this is not going to escape. But anyway, yeah. How do you mesh capitalism with trying to be with the environment, which is basically capitalism works by identifying lacks of efficiency. You could call it efficiency, but it's basically things that are not being used that could be used for some benefit. Now, what exists in the world that is not being used? Very usually that has to do with nature, because we are exploiting nature for our benefit. Now, of course, you can exploit other things. You can exploit like human nature, the way people are, and that won't affect like the natural environment, like trees and stuff. But the idea that like we can direct the way capitalism works is a little bit capitalism has no mechanism for that. It has to be from outside of capitalism. Capitalism is always going to, look for things that can be used that are not being used. That's how capitalism works. I'm not complaining about that right now, but like the idea that you can direct it is not going to be a capitalistic idea. Okay, environmental entrepreneurship and its ethical endorsement. Although environmental entrepreneurship is taking center stage as a distinctive area of study, a generally accepted conceptualization is still lacking in the literature. The ambiguity in the concept overlaps with related research areas such as social and sustainable entrepreneurship, as they all share a drive to ameliorate problems that have been neglected or unsuccessfully addressed. However, there are also elements that distinguish them, including the relative significance of the goals pursued. In social entrepreneurship, for example, the creation of social value is more important than the creation of economic value. Yeah, see, this is the problem right here. Like, exactly. In social entrepreneurship, the creation of social value is more important than the creation of economic value. But if you're embedding this in a capitalistic scheme, aren't you going to have your lunch eaten by someone who is just creating more economic value? Okay, so so social value is more important than the creation of economic value, while sustainable entrepreneurship combines social, economic, and environmental goals. Again, this is my whole problem, and I'm sure the author knows this, but like the idea that you're prioritizing something over economic value, which again is not going to be capitalism then. In these terms, environmental entrepreneurship is distinctive in its focus on the simultaneous creation of environmental and economic value. The combination of ecological and economic logics imbues the term environmental entrepreneurship with promise. It lends itself especially well to descriptions of as an ethical variant of entrepreneurship. Two ways of espousing the ethicality of environmental entrepreneurship are predominant in the literature and public discourses. One identifies ethics with the environmentally friendly activities, and the other sees ethics as a consistent choice for living by contributing to restoring nature, endorsing it with good intentions. In both cases, environmental entrepreneurs become ratified with an ethical identity, albeit with two facets: the general identity referring to activities identified as what, and the distinctive individual identity who, which is illustrative of passionate intentions. Yeah. So yeah, Valpo, you're going to have to criticize me if I don't know what I'm talking about. I realize I've never really done business ethics at all, and so like I'm just riffing on this, and maybe it's unfair. I mean, to be fair, I'm probably unfair all the time, but at least I feel less bad when I've at least heard some truth maker theory, which was the last paper, compared to like business ethics, which I have not at all read, not even one little bit. And I only knew Paul Ricoeur's first name. Like when they said Ricoeur, I knew his first name was Paul. That's all I knew about him, and that he was French. And I had heard that Macron had studied under him, but that's about it. You're skeptical too? Okay. Well, I'm just saying be skeptical of me, because I'm realizing there's certain things I know. This is one of the ones I know even less. So I don't know what the norms are here in the business ethics world. Green activities as an ethical endorsement of environmental entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurial activities associated with the environment are commonly assumed to be ethical themselves. Yeah, see, this is one of the funny things. People just are, this is somehow the default. When you think someone's doing something with the environment, you assume it's to be ethical. It's part of the advertisement, kind of. It's like, oh, I'm a green company. The ideal type of environmental entrepreneur is viewed as an individual whose business transforms their sector, making it environmentally friendly, A well-publicized example is Anita Roddick and the business that she founded, The Body Shop. So you say, yeah, they keep assuming. That's okay, fine. Well, at least I feel less bad if if you're with me on this one. So Anita Roddick founded the business Body Shop, in which a fair balance between environmental and economic goals, known as a win-win situation, is celebrated. Nonetheless, existing research demonstrates that environmental and economic goals and environmental entrepreneurs' values may not always be equally weighted. Some environmental entrepreneurs, identified by some scholars as innovative opportunists, prioritize profits while sustaining the natural environment. Yeah, I mean, you're going to have people on both sides of the spectrum here. Even in some people are going to be just using the green as convenient, and some people are going to be in the business to be green. But like, you can't. I mean, you can't. You have to take all friends where you can get it. Someone who's very good at like making the money off the environment and improving the environment, even if they're like not in it to improve the environment, you still want to be friends with that person. Like they're smart. Now you have to watch them, but like again, you have to watch everybody. So it's not special just for them. It's like it's the old trust but verify. So their economic goals might lead their actions to exploiting opportunities that have a more limited effect on the natural environment, but are more profitable than other options. And indeed, environmental entrepreneurship has been defined as the process of defining, evaluating, and exploiting economic opportunities that are present in environmentally relevant market failures. Examples include startups that take advantage of market failures to offer renewable energy products that create economic value while progressively contributing to reducing the environmental impact. The opportunistic view also evokes Schumpeter's entrepreneurial concept of creative destruction and the innovative role of entrepreneurs. This is the case, for example, with entrepreneurs developing new technology that reduces waste generated in the production process while also possibly damaging traditional industries. I was thinking I should be more of a businessman. I don't make enough money. I should go into business for myself. So I was like, how can I do this? Maybe I should study business ethics and then come up with some ideas. Okay, because being involved in green activities is perceived as a good thing, entrepreneurs are considered as ethical individuals, no matter which values they endorse. Yeah, you can be right for the wrong reasons or wrong for the right reasons. So, like, you can be in it to make money in the green sector, which would be being wrong, but you're right, but for the wrong reasons. Like, you're helping the earth, but you're really in it for the money. But, like, that's not a problem. But you can also be, right for the right reasons. So you could be wrong for the right reasons, but, like, they're in to make money, and also, and helping Earth is a side product. So that's no matter which values they endorse. However, the restrictions imposed by the demands of narrowly conceived opportunistic decisions might raise different controversies in ethical evaluation. In particular, the emphasis on seizing environmental opportunities may open up moral debates about taking advantage and the ethical limitations endorsed with self-directed motivations. Furthermore, a simple association between being green and being good might be criticized on the grounds that activities may have unforeseen negative consequences, and that it would be a mistake to ignore them even when one is dealing with intrinsically valuable activities. Now, this is always going to be the case. So it's unfair to say, like, so even if someone's doing it for the wrong reasons, they're just doing it to make money. But, like, there's always going to be unforeseen negative consequences if you do anything. You're always going to have to break a few eggs if you want, like, an omelet. So this is, especially if you're doing things for the right reasons. This is one of the big criticisms of, like, people saying, oh, we can fix the environment. We have no track record of fixing anything. We have to cut down on our activities, and thinking we can come back and fix it after the fact. I mean, this is the problem. We have so many unforeseen consequences, and this is like, a lot of zombie movies and stuff, or like, like us trying to fix the earth after we've destroyed it. We have a lot of popular media where that doesn't go so well. And this is the idea. It's like, but again, you can't criticize entrepreneurs specifically for this. It's like the only solution is to do nothing, which is also not good. All right, consider, for example, an environmental entrepreneur who introduces a nano fertilizer to increase nutrient efficiency, reducing the adverse effects on the environment, but after some years, contamination is discovered in the bodies of animals and humans, affecting individuals who initially were not taken into account. Yeah, of course. That's the point. Doing nothing also is bad. The status quo at the moment does not work. We're already damaging the environment. And so not doing anything is also not a good idea. And so you can't stifle innovation. In sum, giving ethical legitimacy to environmental entrepreneurship based uniquely on the intrinsic value of green activities means leaving an ethical story half told. There are also other aspects that are necessary to consider, among them the nobility of intentions and the values that drive environmental entrepreneurs to become involved in green activities. I mean, this is like art, though. Why do we actually care about the intentions of the artist? If they make great art and they're doing it for weird reasons, why do we care what their weird reasons are? Like, they make great art, as long as they're not, like, hurting anyone. Again, there's more danger for hurting people or the environment if you're changing the world. But again, like I just said, doing nothing also doesn't work at the moment. So what do we care so much about intentions here? All right, but let's see what the author has to say. Having good intentions as an ethical endorsement of environmental entrepreneurship. I mean, my guess is that if someone has good intentions, it means when something breaks in the future, they're going to do the right thing. But again, there's no guarantee that they will. I mean, something's going to break in the future. We know that. But the idea that, like it's the old Google. They had the motto, "Don't be evil." Eventually, they struck that from the record. Now I guess they can be evil if they want to be. Because, just because they had good intentions is no guarantee of future good intentions. So, and then you could say, well, how deeply ingrained are their values? Well, that's crap. People change, and you should know that. Or people at least can pretend like they have deeply ingrained values, and then they ignore them and just go look at any politician. Or at least most politicians. So the idea of that having good intentions is a stable base for making decisions is shaky, in my opinion. The power of environmental ideals and intentions is remarkable in the identification of environmental entrepreneurs as ethical. Yeah, I mean, maybe this is bullshit, but it's true that people look at this stuff. The literature emphasizes cases of environmental entrepreneurs who are mainly driven by a strong environmental purpose. This intensive altruism also recurs in many public discourses and features in entrepreneurs' own narratives. An example can be found in AeroPower, a UK startup that produces Plumo, a thermal packaging material made from waste poultry feathers. The founders describe themselves as passionate entrepreneurs who find their purpose in creating the products of tomorrow in a more environmentally conscious manner. There seemed to be a general assumption of goodness from these entrepreneurs and their enterprises. Environmentalism and heroism become so entrenched with ethics that they are difficult to separate. Nevertheless, assuming the ethicality of environmental entrepreneurship premised on the noble ideals and intentions of the entrepreneurs has some limitations. For instance, it might be argued that the motivations are not always pure and can change over time. Yeah, that's what I was saying. But yeah, this is not a clever idea. This is obvious. Moreover, associating the ethical considerations of environmental entrepreneurship with good intentions must demand at least something about the correspondence between what one tries to achieve and how one sets about it. Yeah, you can try and fail at being ethical. That is some consistency between intentions and actions. Yeah, there might be a disconnect between how one thinks of what they're doing and what actually one does. And that's fine. But I mean, better to at least think you're doing something good. But it's one... yeah, of course, you can... It doesn't matter, but it's there's tragedies where you are set out to do all the right things, and of course everything goes wrong. The monkey fist situations. Therefore, there are also weaknesses in assessing environmental entrepreneurship as ethical premised on the entrepreneur's intentions. Assumptions remain in the comprehension of ethics itself, where there is still a lack of clarity to justify when and why environmental entrepreneurship can be considered as ethical. Furthermore, the ethics in use, whether it is associated with intentions or activities, is grounded on an implicit view of ethics as something that emerges unilaterally from environmental entrepreneurs. In this context, we propose to turn to Paul Ricoeur's ethical thought to bring insight into this field. Ricoeur's approach to ethics allows us to overcome the partial interpretation of ethics that most studies assume by offering an integrative framework that encompasses the teleological, in accordance with the natural search for the good, and deontological dimensions of ethics, in accordance with the moral care for others, along with the application of critical wisdom in everyday dilemmas. His ethical framework and its application to the environmental entrepreneurship field will be explained in the remainder of this article. Okay, so this was all set up, I guess, which is fine. I am, again, this is all very, sounds great, but it's like, what's the actual, point here? Okay, Paul Ricoeur's approach to ethics. Paul Ricoeur wrote widely on the topic of ethics, although his works do not appear to be directly applicable to the ethics of environmental entrepreneurship. His thesis contains many concepts and ideas that may be extended beyond his original scope to provide the basis for thinking about the set of issues that we want to examine here. In particular, Ricoeur's ethical thought with respect to the moral problem and the logic of hyperbolic generosity embedded in his relational ethics are insightful for our discussion. Okay. Ricoeur's ethical thought. Ricoeur's ethical thought is mainly grounded on two anthropological theses. First, the individual is not isolated but lives within the public sphere in relation to others, known or anonymous. Second, human beings are capable but also finite and fragile interdependent selves, which makes them vulnerable in the accomplishment of their tasks and purposes. From these premises, Ricoeur develops his ethical approach in a three-stage conception of the moral problem: ethics, morality, and practical wisdom. For Ricoeur, there is a clear primacy of ethics over morality. He does not see ethics reduced to the morality of duty. Grounded on a teleological Aristotelian view of ethics, Ricoeur regards ethics as that which is considered to be good, and defines the ethical aim as seeking the good life with and for others in just institutions. Okay, so that's interesting. So that the good life with and for others in just institutions. So this is an embedded Aristotelianism, which I have never heard about before. So it's interesting to me that you have an Aristotelianism that is somehow relational to the institutions that it exists within. Because as far as I understood, virtues, these were habits you cultivate within yourself. So this is something that we do when we are trying to make ourselves better people. We cultivate good virtues. Not good habits, which then become virtues, which is being having, a virtue is being able to act in the right way at the right time, without actually, in some sense, having to reflect on it. But if you're going to embed this seeking the good life with and for others in just institutions, then in some sense you may be doing all of that, but it has to be embedded in some sort of greater society, in institutions there. Right. So, Ricoeur's understanding of ethics arises from action and plunges us into the desire for accomplishment. There is a particular action that plays a crucial role in the Ricoeurian conception of the ethical aim, solicitude, for which Ricoeur involves mutual care in a disymmetrical situation. I have no idea what any of these words mean. I don't know what a disymmetrical situation is. I mean, does that just mean, I guess, not non-symmetrical? I don't know. The departure point at which solicitude occurs is the individual's virtuous actions, that is, the fulfillment of standards of excellence for the self. You see, that's what I was understanding in terms of virtue, but how's this embedded? For instance, assuming an interpretation of the good life as harmony with nature, some virtuous actions may involve the preservation of the natural world. As individuals, good actions are interpreted positively, they develop a sense of worthiness or self-esteem at the ethical level. Yeah, I mean, you feel good about doing good stuff, but sure. Next, self-esteem extends toward the other, which recognizes the other's esteem for oneself. At this interpersonal level, Ricoeur affirms that one lives with and for others, such that there is always an other implied in the ethical aim of seeking the good life. It might be an other whom one does not necessarily know and whom one only coincidentally meets face to face, or many others who are anonymously involved in solicitous relationships through just institutions. Okay, so the virtues are only virtues embedded within an interpersonal relationship, so virtues only matter with some sort of against the backdrop, I guess, which is fine. Like, you can be, even if you're the only person, you can develop virtues, and then you'd have virtues in regards to like the natural world, or if you're in like a society, then you've got like institutions you interact with other people. It doesn't really matter, but like, I guess the virtues you still have to have in relation to other things. An important point for our topic here is that for Ricoeur, solicitude can reach as far as the protection of the environment. Nature can thus be understood as another other that requires respect, the degraded situation of which would reflect an unsymmetrical relationship with humans. In this context, solicitude aims at establishing equality to bring a certain justice to disymmetrical conditions. In fact, Ricoeur compares solicitude with the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you, with its imperative of the respect that is owed to persons that could be extended to nature. According to Ricoeur, solicitude and the golden rule have the same aim: to establish reciprocity wherever there is a lack of reciprocity. Alright, so, is this just golden rule plus virtues? Maybe. However, for Ricoeur, ethics still has to pass the test of moral obligation, in which it encounters prohibitions and duties. At this normative level, Ricoeur draws from Kant's morality with maxims of respect for others submitted to the rule of universalization and the Kantian imperatives of considering persons as an end in themselves. The ultimate goal is to avoid any kind of disymmetry in relationships. To attain this goal, Ricoeur establishes a relation between Aristotelianism and Kantian traditions that implies, in his own words, a relation involving at once subordination and complementarity. And L. Morrison, welcome in. Universalism sucks. Boo. Yeah, I'm not a Kantian, so I'm with you on that. But yeah, we're reading the stuff on Ricoeur and how it can be applied to environmental ethics. Yeah, so this is a question. This actually, right here, this is making me more and more worried. Like, this idea of complementarity, like everything has to be in balance. No one knows exactly what counts as balance in the world. No one has any idea what the proper balance of anything is out there. Like, so we say, oh, we have to make ourselves in better balance with nature. I agree. But like, the idea that we actually know this is is like, it's confused to me. Like, what do we actually know counts as balance? Now, do we know we are destroying the earth? Yes, and that is like obvious imbalance if you want it to be. But like, do we actually know what proper balance is? No. So one should not be taken as the other. And yet, a lot of this stuff does sound like an excuse to do bad shit, because yeah, we don't know what it means. But like, the idea that we know when it's like completely out of whack, but we don't know what. Infernal, what's up? I'm going to be annoyed by the chart later. Oh no, I love charts, and I'm going to be annoyed by it. That's sad. Hey Infernal, what's going on? Too many good people around. I should commit some crimes. Yeah, exactly. Like, what's the proper balance of crimes to non-crimes? Moral criminal. Yeah. Let's give Anne a shout out. Anne's also a streamer, and an excellent streamer at that. One of our friends. So if you don't know this new feature of Twitch, you look at the top chat, you've got the one-clicky follows Anne. How come I'm streaming at this time? Because I didn't stream on Wednesday. I went and hung out at the Walterverse, which he hasn't streamed in like 8 months. I just wanted to go hang out there, see what he was up to, and see how he was feeling. And so this is a makeup stream. And yeah, basically that's it. That's why I'm doing it. Yeah, I normally am doing other stuff on Saturday morning, or it's afternoon now by 10 minutes. But yeah, this is just a makeup stream. It's funny, like, it feels good. Like, back during the pandemic, I was streaming in the mornings because I wasn't at work. And so I forgot. I feel good streaming now because, frankly, I'm not a morning person, and I don't give a shit about mornings, and I don't get anything done during mornings. So streaming is a good thing to do when I don't get a whole lot of other stuff done. So, yeah, it's like I'm not really it takes me a long time to warm up, and so streaming is actually a good thing for me to be doing at this time. It's like I'm not really thinking straight anyway. Might as well be on the internet putting my ideas out there. But yeah, that's what I'm streaming. Anyway, go follow Anne if you haven't. She's an excellent streamer, former sociologist. So real smart, real fun. Plays a lot of games on her streams, but a lot of chatting too. Anywho, yeah, we're reading this business ethics paper. I just realized this may be the first paper on business ethics I have ever read, just because I'm like, why would I read business ethics? That's not my area. But like, yeah, Valpo was like, yeah, sure, read business ethics. So I was like, yeah, okay, I'll read business ethics. And so this is trying to get talk about environmental entrepreneurship, like being in like green businesses and what's good and bad about that. This is a little idealistic, the paper, but hey, whatever. So let me know if you have any ideas, because frankly, I'm just trying to not screw it up at this point, like to be a little bit fair to the area. Exactly. Morrison, that's exactly, you have regrets. Valpo, I have philosophy is a lot of regrets. Yeah, but see, that's the problem exactly, Morrison, is that you get into this business speak of synergy, balances, flow. It's like none of these things have any, like, hard meaning out in the real world. It's all in the people's ideas. So... yeah, I should not be blaming Valpo for business ethics. Business ethics, I'm sure, is a fine area of philosophy. I just don't know it. And, of course, there's going to be better and worse work in that. Yeah, so... but this is the problem. When you start talking about balance... and I can also say, this is not local to business ethics. You hear about imbalances in like chemicals in the brain all the time. What does that mean? Well, they think there's some like spot where it's supposed to be. Now, do they know that this is where the chemicals are supposed to be in your brain? Well, they know on average this is where most people's chemicals are. And so like it's a good thing quite often to be taking drugs to get yourself back into what is considered the normal range. Not everyone is going to be the same. We've got neurodivergent stuff. So people think differently. Their chemicals are different, but it's like you have to be careful when applying this universally, because like what's that because absolute equality, absolute balance everywhere is completely nothing. And so it's like there needs to be imbalances in the world, otherwise it's all exactly uniform, and that's nothing. So there's a funny video from Futurama about like the perfectly neutral people, and it's got something like 10 million upvotes and 10 million downvotes. So yeah. And all says, yeah, I slam heavy Prozac, but it's nice because I actually need more serotonin than baseline because of OCD. Yeah, that's the thing. It helps some people, but again, like, you want to get yourself somewhere. You're doing something to get, it's not a balance, you have an imbalance the other way, and it's healthy. Yeah, so this is the thing. You need certain, you need to be, in some sense, get yourself, certain things are helpful, some things are harmful, but understanding which is which takes a lot of work, and throwing the words around doesn't mean jack. So... that's the whole point. Like, just calling it a balance is not helpful. And the metaphysics of balance is a very, very touchy subject. And, of course, you've got long histories with these ideas of being in balance with the world. And so I don't even want to, like, poo-poo the whole idea the whole time. Yeah. See, yeah, thank you, Ann. Like the idea that there's, like, a balance here. It's like, again, like, what are you appealing to? There is no... balance a lot of times to be spoken of. It's just some sort of fantasy that we have, that we're just gonna have like everything work out. Of course, like I said, and if you need medicine to like keep going, like that's the balance you want. It's like you need drugs to get you back out of whatever balance or whatever imbalance or the balance you're in. Yeah, exactly. Nothing wrong with meds. But, like, this is the point, is that when people say their chemicals are out of whack, what do they actually mean? I don't know. And Morrison says, and it's normal regulation for medicine and all. There'll be times with more or less chemicals, just natural cycles. Yeah. Like, it was just like, are we in balance with enough sleep? I mean, if we were sleeping all day, that would be perfect balance. We'd just be 100% sleep. That'd be balanced. But I mean, that doesn't mean any. That's like nonsense. It's like, so. Anywho, I think I made that point. Okay, finally moving. Thank you for the follow, Morrison. My alerts are down. It's very annoying to me, but I'm working on getting that fixed, or I hope it's going to get fixed. Finally, moving from morality to concrete decision making, Recur recognizes that duty itself must undergo the test of wise and prudent decision making and appeals to practical wisdom. Because practical wisdom deals with specific situations, it is suited to the grasping of the significant circumstances or consequences of each case. It helps to correct possible conflicts that may arise, for example, between the application of the universal rules of morality and the contextual moral values. In these cases, Recur specifically opts for a super-ethics that involves a logic of hyperbolic generosity, encompassing and surpassing the principle of justice. Okay, whatever. The logic of hyperbolic generosity entails a logic of superabundance. And Morrison says, would deontology say there is a duty to be evil then, in a case of too much ethical action? No, because I don't think there's a principle of balance in deontology. This is Recur's ethics, and so if he's advocating for a balance, that's different. Balance is more Aristotelian, like, everything in its you don't want to be overindulgent in Aristotelian. Deontology is the obligation theories. It goes back to Kant. So it's the Kantian theory, Infernal, where it basically says, do as you should only act as if everyone should be acting in that way. So this is the old thing where it's like you have to act in a good way, because that's what it is to be a good person, is to basically never lie, because if everyone didn't lie, the world would somehow be a better place. And so it's a rule-based, a law-based theory where you have to act as according to how it would be if everyone acted that way. It's a theory of universalization. The Aristotelian theory is, of course, virtue ethics, and then you have to have everything in moderation, which is like a more a virtue thing, like don't overdo anything. But deontology, as opposed to consequentialism, which says look at the consequences and then that's how you understand what should be done, make the greatest amount of happiness, says no, you should be looking at things in terms of what rules should we live by. Morrison says universalism sucks, though consequentialism is cooler. Yeah, I mean, most of the people I seem to get along with are in that area. Or of that way. I'm not much on ethics personally. That's not what I think about mostly. But in these chats where basically you're in a consequentialist world, okay, most of the people I deal with are virtue ethicists or consequentialists. But that's not to say deontologists are bad people. It's just to say I find rules too easy to abuse. I also don't like consequentialism either, because I don't know how to add up the good. I don't know if that makes sense. So that, again, doesn't mean anything to me. How do you add up good? I don't know what that means to add up good. But following rules is also, how do you follow a rule? I don't actually know what it counts as rule following in terms of like, okay, you should never lie. I mean, that doesn't seem to be, except for when, aren't there any white lies, all these things, and people find ways around rules all the time. So for the most part, I lean more consequentialist and virtue ethicist, but I don't have any strong opinions on this. I don't find, I'm not an ethicist. I don't know what to do about these things. But yeah, Kantian theory is deontology. Like, you have to follow certain rules. It's like, nah. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm dropping frames. I'm dropping some frames, but hopefully I'm not too far behind here. Kant was an asshole. Actually, I don't know. Was he an ass? Yeah, he was racist and all sorts of problems. You're a chemist. Oh. Well, here's the thing. There are a few philosophers out on Twitch. One of them is the first link. There is our buddy Aristotle, and in regular in Aristotle's chat, and also here sometimes there's someone called Lumpy Dragon Potato. Lumpy Dragon Potato is also a chemist, and so we get interesting insights from like the chemical world. They're doing I forget what they're doing, if they're industrial chemistry or whatever. Yeah. Chemistry is all consequences, which is what you like. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like science is interesting. You get like results, like hard, like does the chemical do the thing or not? It's interesting stuff. But yeah, so these are the little philosopher stuff. So if you're interested in philosophical content, basically Aristotle is most consistent streamer. And philosophy content, you can ask him anything. The Evolve Yourself does a variety of things. He does mostly meditation, but also does some chess. Yeah. And then Ask a Philosopher hasn't been streaming as much, but they do a group panel on Ask a Philosopher. You can ask them anything. So yeah, and me, I tend to read and review philosophy stuff. But yeah, so if you're interested in this sort of content, those are the people that do it. And also, again, like I said, click on Infernal. You can have sociological and historical discussions with her. And also Shane McGinnis, who's around sometimes. All right, so where were we? All right, whatever. Well, we start over at this top paragraph here. Recurs logic of hyperbolic generosity. The logic of hyperbolic generosity entails a logic of superabundance. It has a supramodal quality in virtue of which it proposes to give out generosity without the concern for reciprocation that is embedded in the principle of justice and equivalence. According to Recur, this generous logic requires an ethical discernment that implies redescribing reality in terms of plenitude, respecting the otherness of others in the most extreme possible way. Using the figurative and poetic discourses of the creation myth in Judeo-Christian traditions, Recur explains such a plenitude by taking as a reference the excess of generosity that God shows in the Garden of Eden with his creative event of giving existence to human beings. Okay, wow, this paragraph has lots of complicated sentences in it. The God poetically named in the narrative is the God with whom humans cannot hold reciprocal relations because the gift of existence cannot be returned to the giver. However, it can find expression in an outpouring of life and love that demands nothing in return. In this context, Adam and Eve appear in an idyllic relationship with creation and nature, such that nature is treated not as something to exploit, but as an object of extreme solicitude, respect, and admiration. Okay, so this in the Garden of Eden, we had a different relationship with nature because, well, we were in a different position then, which is interesting. Okay, so we have a different sort of myth about the world that, like, we're going to be reapplying the way we were living in the Garden of Eden to right now, which is odd because we had to leave the Garden of Eden for various reasons. But yeah. Yeah, well, people want stuff, Morrison, so we're going to always be asking for something. People are needy things. And we're whiners, too. We are whiny things. Okay, Recur's hyperbolic generosity thought becomes the practical outpouring of a life and love that see themselves in the light of Adam and Eve's symbol. For Recur, the awareness of the gift of existence investigates an ethics in which the self is propelled to pass on this gift of love superabundantly to others, including nature. In this sense, Recur envisions human beings carrying character before our deviation or going astray, that is, with our original virtuosity commitment and capacity to respond to others' demands, including those of nature, with supramoral care and love that presupposes and surpasses any logic of equivalence. Yeah, so this is pre-fall, like before the fall of Adam and Eve and are kicked out of the Garden of Eden. You were trying to remember what that was like. That seems a little excessive and idealistic, but like okay. But like the idea that we're gonna go back to the Garden of Eden. All right, this is just me criticizing Recur here. I don't know what the like. I just have to assume this. I'm sure Recur has a an answer to this. But the idea that we can get ourselves out back into the Garden of Eden after being kicked out by God would be to violate God's will because God kicked us out. We can't go back. But like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not a theologian by any stretch of the imagination. It just seems like this is a big ask. It's a very big ask for us to undo the fall of man. Yeah. Okay. Now, nonetheless, Recur is aware of our deviation and recognizes human fragility to fulfill all purposes as we wish. Yeah. Okay, good. Of course, Recur knows this. More precisely, Recur acknowledges that all good intentions and efforts to respect others are prey to a non-deontological logic of equivalence. Thus, we may easily end up calculating the return that our actions will produce for ourselves. Recur relates this human fragility to our dependence on context and others as interdependent relational selves, but also to our finitude, our limited perspective and bios, our bodies, passions, and desires. In this context, the logic of hyperbolic generosity is Recur's suggested response to in this context, the logic of hyperbolic generosity is Recur's suggested response to a corresponding radical deontological incapacity to respect others as it might have originally been derived from solicitous behavior. As noted above, Recur addresses the whole problematic of ethics as an exploration of ethical capability. His view of the self as a relational self leads him to a whole understanding of ethics that emerges in relationships through genuine encounters with others. The ethical behavior that he suggests in such encounters involves the logic of hyperbolic generosity. Having examined the distinctive character of this logic, we are now in position to address the question at the heart of this paper. Finally, what is the difference that the Recurian ethical logic offers when it is compared with the ethical perception of environmental logics, and what practical role can it play in environmental entrepreneurship? Okay, so we're finally getting somewhere. Hold on one sec, I need to drink something. In Table 1, we offer an overview of the most important differences between the ethical rationales generally associated with the environmental entrepreneurship and the Recurian logic of hyperbolic generosity. And Valpo has already scared us, saying we're going to be afraid of Table 1. Yeah, Table 1 is down here, so we'll read this, and then we'll get down to Table 1. Two logics of environmental initiatives become apparent in this typification. Opportunistic and passionate entrepreneurs. Opportunistic environmental entrepreneurs are mainly profit-driven. They make use of market opportunities in the environmental sector, but they do not hold high ambitions in terms of nature's restoration targets. Yet they can still be ethical in their handling and decision-making. In fact, fair transactions characterize the business relationships through which opportunistic environmental entrepreneurs expect to make money. Furthermore, because they are involved in environmentally friendly activities, society tends to perceive them as ethical individuals. However, while there is nothing wrong with undertaking an entrepreneurial activity with the aim of gaining rewards in return, entering this exchange for the purpose may signal an incapacity to respect others fully as an end in itself. I mean, maybe this last sentence is right, but like, you can do it. I mean, if you were just being an entrepreneur to be an entrepreneur, then yes, you might be signaling that you don't care about other people, you're just out there to make money, but like, you can also do other things and then keep it separate. Like, business is business and then like life is life, and you are doing your business for one reason, and then you might be a good person otherwise, but like, again, you may not mix the two. So it might be a signal that you are not an ethical person, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Passionate environmental entrepreneurs, in contrast, are not profit-driven. They espouse an environmental logic that draws on and enacts the typical discourse grounded on high environmental ideals. Their business relationships are premised on normative personal commitments associated with contributing to restoring nature. So again, this is the restoring nature, like restoring the Garden of Eden. which they value as good and for which they are held to be somehow responsible. Because their efforts are linked with their wishes and intentions to make the world a better place, these economic agents have a common ethical perception. So, do they? I mean, I don't think that's like a little unfair. I mean, that's like saying everyone has the Garden of Eden view going on in their heads. Now, you could say someone from a very different part of the world may have strong environmental leanings, but I don't know if like the Chinese person's view of nature, which they may be trying to save their environment in China, are exactly aligned with someone, say, from, England. They might. I just don't know. But the idea that there's a common ethical perception is not guaranteed in environmental ethics and, across ethics. Like you take a Confucian ethics may not always agree with, a Kantian deontological ethics. In fact, they won't. They'll disagree on certain things. But I mean, that's fine. But again, like I wouldn't guarantee that everyone in the environmental area agrees with everyone else. I'm sure there's overlap. Okay. However, passionate and opportunistic entrepreneurs share self-oriented behavior, self-interest, or self-actualization. Their ethics can be assimilated with the golden rule and its classical formula, I give so that I can receive, which is premised upon the self as an autonomous individual separated from others. And that's from Recur. In its most basic form, the golden rule asserts that one ought to perform the good for others or nature, and that the same good is what one would expect to receive for oneself. In other words, there is a logic of exchange based on the expectation that from this action there will be a positive consequence for oneself, or that the good performed is expected in return. While the logic of exchange is what makes environmental businesses viable enterprises, the Recurian reasoning would lead us to affirm that a focus on maximizing personal wealth or well-being may lead to conspicuous shortcomings in ethical terms by considering the environmental approach as instrumental. Recur recognizes the complex structure of the self-interested behavior, whether self-centered goals, welfare, or choices, prevents us from taking reciprocity in the relationships to be intrinsically important, and in instrumental relationships such that it might be hard to argue the person's real goal is reciprocity rather than their respective actual goals. Alright, so let's take a quick look at this chart, which we are been warned about already. Okay, so we were the major headline here is understanding the environmental entrepreneurial logics as ethical. So we've got the entrepreneur's actions. So there's opportunistic, passionate, and then the Recurian ethical view. So the profit-driven, we've got the environmental idealist. Then we've got ethical characters of business things, fair transactions and accountability. Then we've got based on strategic objectives, based on intentions. Self-interest and self-actualization. Okay. Yeah, so the romantic hero is why people are doing this under the passionate view. I'm a hero. Okay. And then there's this Recurian ethical view. So this is basically a summary chart. Yeah. Basically, the Recurian view is like a modified passionate view, it looks like here. Like, yeah, I mean, it sounds very, it's idealistic, is basically what it is. I don't want to go through it because one of the funny things about what I'm describing things to people out there in Twitch land is that it's actually extremely hard to represent structured data by talking. Yeah, I just have to say, you have to look at this. Otherwise, you're not going to see. And this is one of the reasons I don't do technical philosophy here, is that it's super hard for me to describe logic in this, I mean, besides, like, I'm only so competent at all the logic stuff. It gets very complicated, but even describing it is harder. It's just, you have to look at the formulas. And I mean, I know people out there, even though some of you are trained, you're not going to be able to like look at the little screen and have the context of the formulas and all the relationships. And so this is one of the things about charts is very hard to do, is describing this. It's a great way for a person to understand the data, but I can't actually tell you what it is. And it's one of these weird things that, why is it that way? And even explaining why it's hard to describe chart data is hard to do. Anywho, Okay, but again, I think this actually, the thing that Valpo was saying is that it makes it look that like this is very idealistic, the whole thing. So it kind of makes it feel like there's not enough depth to what's being said in this paper because it lays out the data very well, but then you get to see that it's sort of a very thin overview of different theories. Okay. So again, we were talking about what is someone's real goal versus what they're just doing. Okay, to overcome this instrumental perspective, Ricoeur proposes the logic of hyperbolic generosity. This Ricoeurian logic suggests a kind of relationship, including business relationships, grounded on abundant generosity based on giving without expectations. But you see, isn't that weird? You're going to have abundant generosity based on giving without expectations in a capitalist society where you need to get something back or else you're going to go poor very quickly. If you give away all your money, why do you think you're just gonna be poor and then you're not gonna have any more money to give away and you're probably gonna be taken advantage of? Okay, continuing. The reasons that drive people to behave with such generosity are placed outside themselves. As noted earlier, there is a feeling of gratitude in the roots of such behavior that comes from the awareness of having received a gift in an unearned and undeserved way instead of the expectation of receiving a gift. Remarkably, this sort of voluntary and hyperbolic generosity constitutes an end in itself. I mean, is that remarkable? I don't know. Such that it would not be enacted to seize an opportunity for personal gain due to personal passionate ideals about nature. The ethics goodness nexus is specifically grounded on actively doing good through benevolent actions, prioritizing the care and concern for the good, well-being, and development of others, including nature, over self-interest. Yeah, I mean, but getting people into the space of gratitude is a lot easier said than done. You always see people as like, well, they had like a religious awakening and now they're like, oh, so thankful for their life. Religious awakening ain't easy to do, and that's like kind of what Ricoeur is asking. Well, the author is asking us just to take on here from Ricoeur that we all of a sudden are going to be so overjoyed to be given this great gift of life and on a wonderful earth. Yeah, that's like I said, like I can say that, but people aren't going to act that way. And like, especially maybe nowadays, things are hard. Not that they were easy in the past, but it's like, it's not like things are good. And so it makes it, the overcoming that like, initial step to saying, well, I have this great gift of life is going to be harder for people nowadays too. Comparing the different logics, it becomes clear that the Ricoeurian perspective extends beyond the common ethical endorsement given to the two views of environmental entrepreneurship. Ricoeur's proposal surpasses any individual calculative reasoning that might take place within the environmental logics in favor of an openness towards all forms of otherness that assumes the connectedness of human beings instead of their separation. Yeah, massive idealism here. Just be all sorts of giving all the time, everything. In this sense, oh wow, losing the voice. And this is what happens when I go a few days without talking so much. In this sense, Ricoeur articulates a distinctive logic of relating to others. The typical formula of the golden rule, I give so that I can receive, is replaced by the formula, because it has given me, I give. Notwithstanding this replacement in the formula of the golden rule, it is important to clarify the logic of hyperbolic generosity does not replace or contradict the logic of equivalence. Tindarios, how you doing? What's going on? How are you? I hope you're well. We're reading this paper, this massively idealistic paper on what it is to be good in terms of a business ethics good when you're doing environmental stuff. And yeah, so like, can you just constantly be giving back to the environment? Is that a good idea? I'm getting by. I'm feeling okay today. Yeah, I was like, I should make up a stream from Wednesday. I didn't stream Wednesday, so I was like, I will stream Saturday morning, and I'm doing it. It's like, yeah, I haven't streamed like on a Saturday morning since the pandemic, and I was home from work, and so I was like, this feels like it's like giving me old flavor of like it being like sunny outside, like daytime. And I'm thinking about lunch now because it's almost 1 p.m. I hope you're well though. I was wondering if I'd get people from like, different time zones too. Because, it's like usually I'm streaming at night here on the East Coast of the United States. And so it's good to see people. People are dropping in. It's cool. Okay, anywho. Yeah, we got a few more pages of this. What are we on? 7 of 11. So, yeah, we are... I mean, that's it, basically. We've got a page and a half. Notwithstanding this replacement in the formula of the Golden Rule, it is important to clarify that the logic of hyperbolic generosity does not replace or contradict the logic of equivalence. In fact, Ricoeur recognizes the practicality of the logic of equivalence embedded in the application of the Golden Rule, yet he warns us that, if it is left to its own, it may be used to support a utilitarian calculation or reactive reciprocity of retribution that perverts the intention of correcting dissymmetry. For this reason, Ricoeur's formula retains the principle of justice that characterizes the transactional giving typical of the logic of exchange, but reorients it in terms of generosity premised on unconditional giving. Yeah, this is the problem. This unconditional giving is supposed to overrun all this sort of transactional stuff, and I just find that very unrealistic. Like, you have to be so generous that you're just like, I'm unconditionally giving. But that just seems unrealistic and going to be taken advantage of in current times. Anywho, in sum, transposing Ricoeurian logic to the entrepreneurship field implies recognizing that fair transactions and accountability in business relationships as they are embedded in green activities, environmental ideals, and good intentions can play an important role in a preliminary judgment about the ethics of environmental entrepreneurship. They may act as valid and indispensable ethical constraints. However, what can be gained with Ricoeur's proposal is an extension of what is already available. Ricoeur's ethical approach allows us to transcend the association of ethics with specific activities or good intentions to consider the abundant solicitude and generosity with which environmental entrepreneurs may act in each relationship. This comprehensive approach, in turn, may facilitate the implementation of Ricoeur's ethics in environmental entrepreneurship and heighten its practical implications. Really? Can you really be like, oh, well, you're not giving out of absolute goodness and generosity, and therefore you're not a good person, or like you're not up to standards? Again, that seems massively idealistic, and why would you hold people to impossible standards like that? If you actually want to get something done, this seems massively impractical, not very practical. It's like, yeah, sure, could we just all be these sort of like go back to the Garden of Eden times? Sure, that would be nice, but like that's not the current world and people as basically like as things are now. Now, here's a question. Is this author here overdoing the idealism of Ricoeur? I don't know. Maybe Paul Ricoeur is more practical. But like just this take on Ricoeur in terms of like, oh, we should be only trying to restore the earth to some like imagined state of like perfection, that's, I find, confused. Because I don't know what the state of perfection is for nature. No one does. Again, this is sort of like the idea of balance. Does anyone know what the proper balance of human to nature is? No. And so this sort of idea where we're going to go back to like a state of pure nature, going back to like a Rousseau sort of thought, I don't know how you're going to make that a practical idea. Like Rousseau, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, I'm saying, it would be like, oh yeah, there's a state of nature like that. This is how people were in the past, and like that's some sort of like ideal. No, Jean-Jacques, we have no idea what that is. That's just some sort of fantasy in your deluded mind. And I hate Jean-Jacques Rousseau, but I think Jean-Jacques talks about all the right things, even though I disagree with them. And so there's the same sort of feeling I'm getting here. It's like, yeah, you want to go, like, Ricoeur is giving this Rousseauian idea of going back to a state of nature, but, like, is with a tinge of the Judeo-Christian history that there's a Garden of Eden. Again, this is just as confused as the Jean-Jacques saying there's a state of nature, or, like, the Judeo-Christian Garden of Eden. No, we don't know what the Garden of Eden looked like. You have a lot of fantasies about that, but I don't see that as a practical goal to get back to because we don't even have an idea of what that is. It's not like we shouldn't be trying to change. Of course we should be, but setting up this impossible goal is not a practical thing. Like, we have to think about this in a different way. So this is my... I don't know, again, like if Ricoeur what Ricoeur said, but this author I just find too idealistic. And idealism, I shouldn't come down so hard on them. Writing an idealistic paper is okay, like it is in terms of philosophy. But yeah. Tindari says, for me, most is just based on a personal interpretation of the world in itself, based on their perceptions of reality. Yeah, so that's the thing. How do you find these big goals to like direct action at? And like that's not a bad idea. Like we can organize people, especially in the Judeo-Christian tradition, insofar as we have this in the West, this like sort of like group viewpoint or this group mythology that like will affect all of our perceptions of reality, because we've heard these stories all before, like in our culture, that like we can do this and that may help us to organize activity. Yeah, but in that sort of practical sense, and like based on our like group perception of reality, maybe we can organize, but how do you actually put that into any specific use? I don't know here. Like it's hard. Okay, but the author is now going to applications. Applications and implications of the Ricoeurian ethical logic for environmental entrepreneurship. Ricoeur's ethics and logic of hyperbolic generosity brings a distinctive trait to the ethics of environmental entrepreneurship through an other-oriented disposition and a normative standard that can be used to judge ethics in relational actions, to give without any expectations. Again, massive idealistic. Like, I don't really understand how you do that. Okay, an example of the Ricoeurian ethics in practice happens in Phycogenetics, a European academic spin-off that offers solutions for efficient genetic engineering of microalgae. This company shares knowledge and performs favors for businesses and researchers seeking advice. Ethics in practice and researchers seeking advice, period. Ricoeur's ethics in practice can also take place through environmental entrepreneurs assisting their employees in professional and personal growth, for instance, listening to them and helping them to solve problems. Alternatively, a Ricoeurian logic of hyperbolic generosity might be integrated by introducing a motive of compassion, which often arises in times of crisis, into business codes, or through the role model of environmental entrepreneur. Despite the fact that the application of Ricoeur's ethics does not guarantee a concrete result beyond the active action of doing good itself, it may bring important benefits to the environmental business. According to Ricoeur, indeed, the idea of unconditional giving instead of transactional giving reveals concrete ways to promote important human activities. Thus, acting under a logic of hyperbolic generosity may promote good habits and altruistic values that, little by little, may help to introduce changes into the business culture, inspiring a spirit of generosity and benevolence, and enhancing the relationships of solicitude, mutual trust, contribution, and commitment that enable environmental businesses to thrive. In fact, benevolent giving is considered to be constitutive of meaningful personal relationships, which can in turn help people to grow in confidence and responsibility, to become involved in productive collaborations, and propose more creative solutions to environmental problems, positively improving the environmental enterprise's effectiveness and efficiency. Thus, a Ricoeurian perspective might also enhance environmental entrepreneurs' ability to articulate their tough environmental mission compellingly, helping to manage or reproduce their vulnerability and to improve the long-term health of the environmental business. I mean, this all sounds great, but like, so what? It's like, yeah, you should have some high ideals. Like, and I'm sure the Ricoeurian ideals are good, they sound fine, but like having high ideals is like, it's a normative thing. You're trying to get people to do things, and it's like, all right, and giving people ideals and a strategy to like sort of orient themselves is good. But again, like they just said, this does not guarantee a concrete result. This is just some high idealistic stuff. So, okay. However, continuing, the Ricoeurian ethics is not inexorable, and its application to the environment entrepreneurship field may encounter some difficulties. You don't say. For example, it may be argued that even though the logic of hyperbolic generosity can serve environmental entrepreneurs through the knowledge that they should show benevolence to others, doubts might emerge concerning the appropriate amount of generosity put into their relationships, or for whom they should care more when there are conflicts of interest among those who demand something from them. Human vulnerability and fragility, although they can be reduced, cannot be eliminated. Moral conflicts and confrontations might emerge in business life even when applying recurring approach. Nevertheless, the logic of hyperbolic generosity may also enable forgiveness, and therefore the recovery of trust might be easier in these difficult situations. Again, it's like, oh yeah, everything will work out if you jump onto my preferred ethics. Yeah. Okay, conclusion and further research. And this, so we got about a page to go, but we should get through this fast. And my voice is going, I'm sorry. There is a general perception of environmental entrepreneurship as an ethical variant of an entrepreneurial activity. However, we've argued that this assumption is flawed since it is merely grounded on a generic ethical assessment of activities or entrepreneurs' intentions to restore nature. Moreover, the understanding of ethics is implicit and assumed rather than explained. In light of this, we have claimed the need for a comprehensive ethical approach that can be applied to this area and serve as a guide to knowing when and why we might speak about environmental entrepreneurs and environmental entrepreneuring being ethical. This article has tried to respond to this need by offering a distinctive ethical reasoning based on Ricoeur's ethical thought and his logic of hyperbolic generosity. We've argued that this logic is intelligible in its own right and responds to broader ethical concerns than those endorsed in the current ethical perceptions of environmental entrepreneurship. Moreover, we hold that the logic of hyperbolic generosity is relevant to value the ethicality of environmental entrepreneurs and important for environmental businesses to thrive, as it can help create a virtuous circle by opening space for ongoing relationships of trust that stress generous actions. Yes, I mean, yeah, if you can show that like any environmental ethics that like focuses on making the environment better, that's fine. And like this one, that's what this paper does. It says, look, you can do this in Ricoeur. They did not show one thing in this paper that it is somehow better than any other ones. Granted, that was not their goal here. As they just said, their goal was to just give an ethical account of why and how we should view ethical environmental entrepreneurship. But, I'm not buying the specific benefits of the Ricoeurian approach, but that it can be done is sure, that's fine. If that's all that they were trying to establish, okay. So they say in this context, we contribute a modest advance in theorizing about environmental entrepreneurship and appropriate ethics. In particular, Ricoeur's main contribution to the ethics of environmental entrepreneurship lies in the provision of a relational ethics synthesizing teleological, quasi-deontological, and the establishment of a relationship between the need for wisdom and discernment and the advice of acting out of gratitude with superabundant generosity. Ricoeur's approach to ethics has thus given us ground to develop new ways of thinking about certain ethical aspects to apply in the environmental entrepreneurship field. More specifically, building on his work, we have proposed a practical ethical guide for helping entrepreneurs in their decision making and provided an explicit ethical framework to avoid the problems that can arise from the ethical assumptions of environmental entrepreneurship. Our Ricoeurian framework has stressed that environmental entrepreneurship, rather than being ethical by definition, can be ethical or not, depending on how the practices of care in which environmental entrepreneurship engage with others and with nature. However, some challenges may appear. As we noted above, the application of Ricoeur's ethical approach may involve some difficulties. It suggests a different language such that its application might require the opening up of a different discourse on ethics. In this sense, we acknowledge that much work is needed. Our aim here has been to highlight the possibility of enriching the understanding of ethics within the area of environmental entrepreneurship. Our contribution is offered not as a fully developed framework, but rather as a step in its continued development. We also recognize that other ethical frameworks such as stakeholder theory, care ethics, and practical wisdom might also be used to provide insights into this field. In fact, they might complement the Ricoeurian approach on which we have focused in this work, but due to the limitations of scope of this paper, we have had to omit them. Okay, so they say, look, there are other people in this area, we were just presenting our own. I agree, that's fine, they can do that. Nonetheless, this limitation offers promising avenues for future research. In particular, future works might opt to take these approaches as a departure point and complete the initial step that we have provided using Ricoeur's ethical thought. Further qualitative studies might also investigate the value of Ricoeur's ethics for business performance and reputation. In addition, we may have opened up issues for inquiry in the recent entrepreneurial literature that favors everyday prosaic practices and questions, for instance, how well Ricoeur's argument fit and provide guidance. Studies that consider Ricoeur's ethics in the context of different categories of environmental businesses or that focus on firms created by multiple founders may also result in an interesting discussion. In fact, future research may take teams as a departure point and focus on the collective aspect of responsibility. It might also be interesting to analyze the political dimensions of ethics in this field, reaching beyond a discussion of whether and how environmental entrepreneurs act ethically in their relationships and considering whether and how these acts become good for the world in which they live. In this manner, we might progressively advance our knowledge of how environmental entrepreneurs' ethical practices may contribute towards turning the earth into a renewed Garden of Eden. Okay, so that's that. This was, I feel like, light fare. They basically took an ethics and said, hey, you can do this. It's like, yes, you can do that. You can, you can basically take an ethics and say, here's how it can be applied in this one spot. Now, I don't know enough about Ricoeur to say, have they actually expanded upon Ricoeur's work to really extend it into a new area so that like Ricoeur is really engaging with environmental ethics. Basically, it just looked like they were saying, hey, look, you can do this. Not that Ricoeur has something important to say in terms of other theories in this area. This is just a, hey, you can do it paper. That's cool. Like, hey, you can do it. It's interesting, and maybe other people will be interested in it now that this is out there. I don't know. But, like, it just doesn't seem... I should keep reading a book I started years ago called The Ethical Slut. I mean, I wonder what the theory is there. Like, are you just being, like, overly generous with your body and being slutty for everyone so everyone can have sex? Like, I mean, that would be one view of things. I don't know. I don't know if that's a good idea. But yes. I wonder what it... I mean, there's no reason to kink shame or, like, shame anyone for having sex. So it's like the idea that slut is bad is not... that's wrong. But, like, yes, the ethical slut. It's about being a slut, yes, but with morals and not doing silly things like home wrecking or lying to people. Yeah, I mean, that sounds good. There's no reason to mess up people's relationships. You can be slutty without messing up. I mean, and slutty again, like I'm saying, in the descriptive way, not normative way. Do not reckon you can live your best slutty life, but being responsible and respectful to people. Exactly. If the best life is your slutty life, go for it. And so like that seems right. Own the sluttiness, as it were, and like make that a new thing. There was a fun meme I saw the other day about some lady that claimed to have some lovers in the thousands and was attending someone's wedding. Yeah, descriptive, not a state of mind. Being a slut is a state of mind. I see. So this lady apparently had slept with both the bride and the groom, and when they were walking down the aisle, she was just like, people overheard her say, "I had them both, neither were very good." But see, that's funny. It's like, yeah, she was living her best life, and she should not have said that at their wedding. But I mean, you know, that seems like a legit criticism of that couple. But maybe it's good that they found each other, because two mediocre people together may be very happy in being mediocre together. I mean, clearly they were not for her. So, yeah, so live your best life. If like that, if your best life can be described as being a slut, no normative value attached to that term, then yeah, go for it and be happy in your sluttiness and like enjoy your life. So, but yeah. See, at least in what you're saying, Infernal, is that like you can apply the idea of like being sluttiness, that ethics, to your life, and how is that going to be your best life? That's interesting. You read The Myth of Sisyphus from Camus? Can recommend it? Okay, there you go. I did not read Camus' Myth of Sisyphus. Yeah, so I don't know. But yeah, The Myth of Sisyphus, of course, is the guy rolling the ball up the hill every day. What was I saying? Yeah, so this is applying recurring thought to environmental ethics and to environmental entrepreneurship. If you can, is that a good thing? I don't know. But like, again, could you apply sluttiness in the descriptive sense to your life? Is that a good thing? If it's good for you, then yes. The question is this good in general? I don't know if recur is good in general. But if it does help some people, then that is good. Is rolling a ball up the hill good every day? I don't know. But maybe it is good. But yeah, I don't know if I have anything more to say about this. It just seemed like an exploratory paper. It's like, hey, this might be a good idea. I don't quite know, but like you can do this. It's like you can go be a slut, and if you do it well, maybe that will work for you. I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, like this thing, if you employ this recurring view of ethics in environmental entrepreneurship, maybe that will work. Yeah. Well, exactly. Maybe some people like that sort of working out every day. So maybe that is the point. Keep yourself in good shape. I don't know. But it's like, this is the thing. Are these good ideas? Maybe. Are they good ideas for you? Perhaps. Like that, you have to decide for yourself what is going to work for you. And, you know, is restoring the Garden of Eden a good idea? I mean, I find that a little bit ridiculous, but the Garden of Eden is a massive idea in like Judeo-Christian thought in the Western world. And so maybe that is a good thing that we should be aiming at, or can capture the imaginations of enough people that it matters. So, okay. I'm losing my voice. I should probably go eat some lunch. I hope everyone has a good, I thank you all for being here. Infernal, Tindarios, let's see, Morrison, who was here earlier? Valpo, Cinesemiotics, and was it? Who was running around? Was it Tindarius that was running around? I completely forget now. Who was doing the 10K? But yeah, good luck with the working out. Yeah, so yeah, Infernal. Someone was in here earlier. Streamer brand, completely forgot already. But yeah, saying they were not getting out of bed because they've been training for a 10K. So it's like, yeah. But yeah, that's enough of this for now. I wonder if anyone I know is actually streaming. Yeah, well, that's my feeling too. I'm not much of a runner. My brother is the runner in the family at the moment. So, yeah, I never figure it out. No one I really feel the need to go raid is online. So maybe that'll be it for now. Tinder says, in the essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, Albert Camus develops a first version of a logic of the absurd. Human existence is characterized by a tension between our striving for meaning and a world that that constantly disappoints this striving. According to Camus, the realization of this fact must not be responded to or with the abandonment of the pursuit of meaning. Rather, he calls for an attitude of constant revolt. Okay, so that's interesting. Since we're going to be in a state of failure overall for our endeavors, we should be revolting against a world that is constantly causing us to fail. So it's not that we shouldn't stop, it's that we have to think of what we're doing as a revolt. And maybe one of these times we'll escape. But I mean, why should we be in a constant revolt? Isn't that just the same thing as rolling the ball up the hill? It's just we're going to call that revolt now. Yeah. So that's the question. What is it to be ethically revolting, like not revolting, but to be in a state of like revolt? 'Cause that's funny. Revolt is like revulsion also. At least in English. I don't know how it is in French. But yeah. So I mean, what is the ethical stance that is different there? Like, are we going to stop rolling the ball up the hill? Is that our revolt? Or should we keep trying to do stuff in spite of it? I don't know. Not be responded with the abandonment of the pursuit of meaning. So we still have to find meaning, but the meaning has to involve revolting against the failure of past failures. I mean, that's fair. Like, we have to do better than we did in the past. And so that is a sort of a progressive view that we're making progress if we're revolting against it. Yeah, I don't know what Camus was getting at there. But yeah, audiobooks online. No, it's not. Camus knows what he's doing. Like, he's a smart dude. So, like, he probably has a point there in terms of, like, how your ethical stance is to the world. Now, I'm on the infernal side here. It's like I don't have the principles of sufficient reason. Like, I reject the principle of sufficient reason. Not everything is there's not going to be a reason for everything. There's not going to be meaning to all the things. Some things are just going to be the way they are, and like, that's it. As Infernal just said. Like, you're just not going to be able to figure it all out. And so the idea that, like, we're going to pursue and fail, it's like, yeah. But, like, does that mean we're going to be in a state of revolt? No, because, you know, sometimes things do have meaning. And this is maybe one of the differences between me and other people. I'm extremely cynical, but cynicism actually has a positive aspect to it. There is meaning out there. We're just not going to get to it very often. It's going to be very, very rare, and it's going to be very, very hard fought and hard come by. And so most people are going to not find much meaning anywhere, and that's going to be fine, but you can still do it. It's not that you can't do it. It's just going to be extremely hard fought and probably not worth it mostly. And so it's like, yeah, it's like, so I have a positive outlook on the world. It's just sort of a depressingly positive outlook that you're basically not going to find much meaning, but it is possible to do. So it's not rolling the ball up the hill because you're going to make progress eventually. It's just going to be extremely painfully difficult. But that's like my personal view on these things. Just cynical. But yeah, I don't know what Camus means by revolt at that point. Or the meaning is stupid, Infernal says. Meaning doesn't have to equate reasoning or a raison d'etre. Yeah. Well, that's kind of my thing. It's that you can find it, but you're kind of saying it's going to be thin. Like, there's going to be, like, you're going to find out the world is not got, like, some deep meaning. It's just going to be a very thin meaning. Like, okay, people, we like this, and what was it? Like, oh, so here's a little anecdote. I was at work, and there used to be this very religious girl. I say girl because she was like 19, 20 or something. Very religious lady, younger, and she, you know, didn't curse. She didn't do anything, like she didn't drink. Well, I'm not reading it now. Like, my voice is going. But thank you. I can read it maybe next time you're here. Let's see what it looks like. Paste and go. Oh, there we go. Okay, so it's a 2-minute story. Okay, so yeah, we can definitely have this going. Yeah, I don't think you can hurt it. Yeah, well, it's a 2-minute audiobook for those. Well, no. Okay, yeah. Okay. What was I saying? Oh, so it's like I was just telling a little story about this. What am I doing? Yeah. Yeah, so a little quick view here. So yeah, it says it's 2 minutes and 56 seconds. So it's a 3-minute thing for this is the preface. But yeah, let's see. Oh, it's a playlist, and so there's 11 videos. Okay, yeah, so I'm not dealing with this, but yeah, it's available. It's 3 hours. Sorry, I was confused. I was like, oh, excited. Very short story. But yeah, I was like, what is he going to get done in 3 minutes? Anyway, somehow it came up about strip clubs in conversation at work. So, like, this is a work environment. And this religious person was there, and she would never, like, she wouldn't go. And we were like, you can go. She was like, oh, I can't, because I mean, this would be like against. I was like, going to a strip club, of course, is nothing there. Like some of the guys were discussing, we weren't saying anything like unbusiness, like, except for the topic of conversation. Probably shouldn't have been like discussed at work, but like we weren't saying anything improper. And but she was like, I want to know, and we were all just like turning to her and be like, there is nothing to know about strip clubs. It's like you can go there, you'll figure it out in 3 minutes. Oh, like you see like pretty people dancing with no clothes on, and it's like you think there's like a deep meaning. There is no deep meaning, none. It's like, that's it. You're going to find out very quickly what it is, and like that doesn't make it valueless, but like there's no grand meaning there. And she sort of like thought there was a grand meaning because like so many people do this. It's like, no, it's a very simple meaning. That doesn't mean it's not universal or important, but it's not complicated and it's not deep. It's like, yeah, that's how things are. Some things are like this, and I think a lot of that. And so it's like, the meaning is stupid. Yeah, it's like, you want to explain why people like strip clubs? It's like, yes, people like boobs. Like, oh my God. But like, there is nothing interesting about boob. Like, well, of course, there's many things interesting about boobs, but like there's nothing interesting about saying people like boobs. Like, yeah, people like boobs. It's like, I mean, how many Genshin Impact streams are there? Like, go do that. Bayonetta 3 just came out. Go look at Bayonetta 3 stream. Anfel says, great example. Women have no idea what goes on in those places, so it's a mystery to us, from the wise to the house. Yeah, it's like, you can go find out. Like, I encourage everyone to go find out. They're basically bars with people dancing, and it's less complicated and not that like it's a great thing in some sense, but it's less, there's no deep meaning to this. You're not getting anything else. And like, if you think the stripper likes you, no, she does not like you. She likes the money. It's like, that is her job. Same as a lot of times, like, just like service staff, they don't like you. They're being nice to you because that is their job. And like, there's nothing deep about that. And people, of course, like, oh, like, she's got her clothes off and she's dancing for you. Yes, but like, that's her job, to make you feel liked. So it's like, but like, there's no more to it than that. Like, you can ask more, and that's just the answer. Yeah, basic economics. Like, the people, and of course we're on Twitch too. Like, there's plenty of hot tub streamers, you could say, and I'm not even saying all hot tub streamers. I'm just saying the parasocial relationship. They are providing you a service to feel like something, and you're feeling appreciated. And is there a deep relationship? Maybe there's more sophistication on like the parasocial relationship here, but like for the vast majority of times, at least in the strip club, no, everyone's leaving at the end. No one's going to be having any deeper relationship at that. Like, that's the point. You show up, you pay your money, you get your service, and then you leave. Now, when it comes to like these internet relationships, there is something more complicated going on there. But it's very similar. You watch a show for not very complicated reasons quite often. So it's like, is there any mystery to strip clubs? Nah, there's no mystery to strip clubs. Okay. And on that rather lovely note, I will see you all probably tomorrow night, unless something else comes up. Anne says, I once explained some Marxist theory to a viewer of mine during a private call through how camming works, and he understood straight away, but it took some of the mystery away. Yeah. It's like, once people understand the theory, then they're like, oh, this is what's going on, and then the mystery is gone. You lose a little of the allure of what's happening once you understand what actually the transaction is. See, that's interesting. Maybe you shouldn't do that, Anne, and to, keep the money flowing in. It may be like a professionally damaging to explain the transactional nature of the Marxism and capitalistic system that's going on. Yeah. But on the other hand, maybe if you are doing some cam work, it would be good to understand that, and then you can exploit it even better. So maybe you can even do if you understand the Marxist theory better, maybe you can provide a better service, because other people, you're going to know more than the viewers, and you can actually exploit it even better. So maybe don't explain it, maybe use it to your own benefit to make the monies. That's for anyone doing cam work, of course. You don't need my suggestions, but Yeah, I don't know. I've not done any cam work. This is the most cam thing I do. Yeah, you get that. You exploit that imbalance in knowledge to your own benefit. Do it. I mean, that would probably be the same thing. You sweat more. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's not a whole lot different to between playing video games or reading philosophy online and doing like taking your clothes off or whatever else there is, doing strenuous activities, and yeah, you just sweat more. Okie dokie. Do you have anything more to say? I mean, I think that's a great ending. Basically, all this sort of broadcasting is just you're doing different vigorous activities, just sweating more. What is sports, by the way? And if you want to understand why people like sports versus why people like looking at porn or anything like that, you're going to have a hard time actually explaining the very big differences between the sorts of media. So it's like, yeah, there's guys running around on a field grabbing at each other. And you're telling me, oh, okay, as opposed to like people in a bed grabbing at each other is so different. It's like, you can really force these analogies if you want to. But yeah. Alrighty. So thank you all for being here. It was a bit of a fun stream for me. Not my normal time. But have a great day. Stay safe out there. And I hope to see you soon.